Yeah, we've really enhanced not only our scientific advisory board, we've created a commercialization advisory board to make sure that we are addressing the commercialization of the osteosarcoma for humans, and a patient advocacy board that will really help us tell our story.
All right, welcome back inside our proactive newsroom. And joining me now is Paul Romness. He is the CEO of OS Therapies. And Paul, it's good to see you. How are you?
Thanks so much, Steve. It's great to be with you, especially after our IPO on New York Stock Exchange about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's going to be my first question, actually, talking about the IPO. And we'll get to that in just a second, but maybe just give people an idea a little bit about the company itself.
Sure. OS Therapies, when we started the company originally, was to represent osteosarcoma, which is a bone cancer. When we started the company, it was around my daughter's best friend who was diagnosed with osteosarcoma in February of 2017. I always tell the end of the story to take away the suspense that she's doing great. She serves on our board of directors, but about 50% of these teenagers end up losing their life to this very deadly disease. And since then, we've added other indications and another platform technology. So that OS now really stands for overall survival, which is the barrier to entry with the FDA.
Yeah. Obviously, the company is pushing forward. Talk a bit about the technology that you're looking at and what it is you're hoping to eventually get to.
Sure. So our first platform technology is a off-the-shelf immunotherapy. We're giving the body an attenuated or weakened listeria with a HER2 vector attached to it, and the body freaks out and starts firing up the immune system and starts telling the body to secrete T cells out of lymph nodes, and they go and find these little micrometastases that have survived chemo and radiation that all solid tumor patients get. But with osteosarcoma, very deadly, no new treatments over 40 years. These little osteosarcoma, what we call cancer seeds, find their way into the lungs and the brain because they love oxygen and soft tissue. And that's just like any other solid tumor when it metastasizes. So we're firing up the immune system. These little T cells go and kill the little micrometastases and prevent the metastasis, which really drops survival. The other platform technology is an ADC, antibody drug conjugate. It's basically a cruise missile with kind of cluster bombs attached to it, payloads. Our special sauce on that is we're covering the payloads with silicone and then attaching them to the ADC. And the beauty of silicone is it doesn't get broken down by the proteins in the body. So it'll travel through the body without affecting the patient. And then we get to the cancer environment, which has a high acidity, low pH, and it eats away at that silicone and drops payloads to debulk large solid tumors like ovarian cancer, colorectal cancer.
Yeah. And what stages are you at with those? Are you at the sort of the beginning, the middle, or nearing an end?
So interestingly, I'll answer the question, but osteosarcoma actually only happens about 1,000 kids a year. 30
Yeah.
to 40,000 dogs a year get osteosarcoma in the United States. It's the highest disease killer of dogs. We've actually gotten USDA provisional approval, conditional approval on the canine indication, and we're looking to finish up full approval at the USDA and out-license that. Our human osteosarcoma trial, the last patient just received his last dose last week, patient number 41. We will have the closeout of the data by October 1st, and we should have the data finalized by the end of this year to submit to the FDA for breakthrough designation as well as conditional approval. And then the ADC technology is a little further back, but as I describe it, Steve, it's like having two children. You love them equally, you just love them differently. The ADC technology is further back, but it seems to be very promising.
Okay. I want to ask you about your IPO, but I also want to talk about some recent news that you had. I think is pretty significant, especially coming off of what you're talking about now. You've been added into a very unique club with Johnson and Johnson. Can you sort of talk about what this is and what this club is and how you are now a member of it?
Well, it's funny because it's kind of my return to Johnson Johnson because I was at J&J for about 15 years earlier in my career. So it's kind of full circle. But Johnson & Johnson has these J labs all around the world in biotech hubs like Boston and San Diego and DC and New York and Singapore and London. And they only invite you in, it's like a biotech lab, we work. but they only invite you in if they're interested in your technology. And to be quite frank, they passed on our pediatric oncology, our osteosarcoma technology, which is much further along. And that's fine. We'll have other partners for that, or we'll commercialize it ourselves at the pediatric J Labs here in DC. But they did invite us into the New York City, Lower Manhattan J Labs because of our ADC technology. And if you've been following the ADC world in biotech over the last 18 months, the deals are ginormous. I mean, the smallest deal has been about 400 million. There have been about 20, 25 deals, the largest being 53 billion with Pfizer buying Seagen.
Wow. Incredible money being thrown around for sure, but obviously important work as well. You recently added a member of your advisory board, Dr. Boris Shore, who has a long history in oncology, probably a key signing, I would think, to your advisory board.
Yeah, we've really enhanced not only our scientific advisory board, we've created a commercialization advisory board to make sure that we are addressing the commercialization of the osteosarcoma for humans, and a patient advocacy board that will really help us tell our story, including a young lady who finished the clinical trial and has since gotten engaged. So a lot of great stories. A lot of these patients in our clinical trial had a very small chance of getting through the trial. And so we've already had some good results with that. But Dr. Boris Soares is one of the first clinicians and researchers to develop an ADC. And we've got a couple other real ADC powerhouses we're going to add to that advisory board as well.
Okay. And lastly, let's talk about the capital markets. Obviously, it's important to a company like yours to have access to capital to help you grow and get work done that you need to do. Your IPO, as you mentioned, just happened recently. Tell me a bit about that transition into the capital markets.
Well, I strongly believe, and this goes back way back on an old finance undergraduate degree I have, but I strongly believe the capital markets are there to fund innovation. But look, Steve, as you know, IPOs are either cash out or to fund something, and we're funding clinical research in unmet medical need. So, the IPO was tough in the beginning, but I think we've gotten through the scary part, and we're above strike price, and all I see is good news coming up in the next few months. So, I think people see the opportunity, and we're starting to get some analyst coverage as well. And we've been really impressed with New York Stock Exchange America. They've really rolled out the red carpet for us. And I really encourage other biotechs, small biotechs, to look at NYSE American. They've been just first class.
Perfect stuff. Paul, thanks so much. As I mentioned earlier, very important work, and I really appreciate your time today and letting us know exactly what you're up to. And we look forward to following your story, okay?
Thank you so much, Steve.
All right, good stuff. There's Paul Romness. He's the CEO of OS Therapies.